So, no, anyway. Lightroom. So just a couple things to talk about really quickly about this. Certainly if you guys are using it, Lightroom has gotten to be incredibly complex, primarily because there's 4 versions of it. I was actually at Adobe this summer for their education summit, and a lot of the conversation revolved around the fact that there's 4 versions of it, and sometimes they play nice with each other, and sometimes they play horrible with each other. And so it sort of became my mission to try to find a way to take advantage of the best of those ecosystems, keep the cost down, and give our students the greatest ability to do the greatest amount with it. So I'm going to just throw this out to you right away. This is the stance that we're taking here at Columbia College. There has been some conversation that Lightroom Classic should be renamed Lightroom Professional, and that's the way I would ask you guys to actually think about it. It is hands down the most complete program of all the Lightrooms that exist. We still are very print-based here at this college, and you cannot print out of anything except for Lightroom Classic. However, there's advantages to having some of your work in the cloud, so anyway, access to it, to be able to work on I don't work on my pictures on my phone, but on a tablet or, other devices. I mean, I can see the value in that part, being able to at least edit. So another reason that Classic, I think, and it's the reason that I push very hard for Classic, so I'm going to throw some things out, and then I'm going to show you the workflow. If there's questions about the whole syncing issue, about all this, that, and the other, go ahead and raise your hand during it. I'm happy to stop and clarify something. But the long and the short of it is this. If you use any other version of Lightroom other than Classic, it relies on you loading up or uploading to the cloud full res images, raw files, Photoshop files, TIFFs, JPEGs, the whole 9 yards. That's what goes up there. Every single one of those things counts against your quota. Now, depending on the plan that you have, most quotas for Adobe are 100 gigabytes. I can blow through 100 gigabytes in a semester. So and to buy more storage, you can do that, but it's incredibly expensive, and it never ends. So what happens with Classic, though, is that Classic does not upload your raw files. Classic uploads smart previews. Smart previews are at least large enough files that you can work on them on an iPad or something else. They're also actually large enough that you can do very small prints, but they're certainly large enough for you to be able to do social media, that sort of stuff. And the uploading smart previews from Lightroom Classic is unlimited, and there is no charge. It does not count against your quota. So I've got tons of stuff uploaded, and my quota is almost at 0. I don't upload any raw file, any of that kind of stuff. So anyway, just to sort of clarify you about where I'm coming from and why I see the value in using Classic over everybody else. Does that sort of make sense? Okay. So I'm going to start out and just sort of show you the workflow that we would do, imagining that you've never seen Lightroom, or that you're just starting, you're an incoming Photo 1 student here at Columbia College. So first things first, and I know all of you have to be experiencing this. You've got your students who have gone out and bought their latest, greatest computer, and they got the smallest hard drive they could possibly afford in it, right? So it's got 250 gigabytes, and they fill it up right away, and all of a sudden their computer doesn't work. They can't do anything because they didn't really think that possibly a much larger internal hard drive would serve them, but that's the case. So we actually strongly encourage them to use an external hard drive, and I'm going to take that a step further, an external hard drive that's dedicated only to Lightroom. Nothing else on that hard drive. 0 on that hard drive except for Lightroom. The way I'm going to set this up, they're going to have all their raw files on it, and they're also going to have their database, actually the Lightroom database on it as well. That makes backing up much easier. That makes organization much easier. So that's just our approach to it. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, if I had 1 out of 10 students who actually followed that philosophy, whatever, I'd be thrilled. But nonetheless, it's just a problem that we continue to have. Before I go any further than that really quickly, I'm just going to also say that we have an enormous problem here with backing up and backup strategies. People, I can't tell you the number of people who come to me and say, I can't open my hard drive has crashed, it's all my files are on it. My first question always to them is, do you have a backup? And they're always like, no. And I was just like, if you do not have a backup of your files, you do not care about your work, period. And I just stress that as much as I possibly can. A backup is not a second hard drive sitting next to your computer. Typical backup philosophy for us is the 1, 2, 3 method. You have 2 copies of your hard drive that are in your possession. One backs up to the other in case one crashes. But you have a third one off-site. Because if you have only 2 hard drives and they're sitting right next to your computer and your house burns down, you lose all your work. Somebody steals your stuff, you lose all your work. Your roommate hates you and reformats all your hard drives, you lose all your work. There's a flood, you lose all your work. I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on. So that's the method that I go through, and that's about all I will really say about that. And now we'll actually get into doing some Lightroom stuff. Any questions about any of this? Okay. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir here. Okay, so it starts out with my external hard drive. Blank hard drive. I am going to add a new folder to that, and I'm going to call it Lightroom Library. I should tell you right now, I spell at the level of about a 6th grader, and I type 13 words a minute with 5 errors in there, so I'm just going to apologize for all of that right now, and yeah. Inside that Lightroom library, we're going to do 2 other folders. One's just going to be called Catalog. And the second one is going to be called All Photographs. I told you I type slow. Multiple catalogs. Highly, highly, highly discourage that. The problem with multiple catalogs is that it defeats the entire purpose of having a catalog. Having a catalog is something that you can leverage the database functions. You can search it, but if you've got multiple catalogs, you have to then search multiple catalogs for your work. Bad idea. Really bad idea. So anyway. Then I'm going to start Lightroom. This is the latest version, again, of Classic. So I'm going to start by holding down the Option key and clicking on it, because what I want to do is create a brand new catalog. And in this dialog box, I'm going to hit New Catalog. I'm going to navigate to my external hard drive, into Lightroom Library, into Catalog. This is where I want to put it, and I'm going to name it after myself. Now, you can get into all sorts of naming conventions, but and hit Create. So at this stage of the game, the things that we were finding that happened here at Columbia that were causing us the biggest problems were importing was a nightmare, and exporting was a nightmare. Grading stuff was a nightmare. So the workflow that we've developed is a way to try to get away from the problems or the possible places where people kept getting tripped up. So I'm going to start with something that seems off to begin with, but because most people would start at this stage of the game like, okay, you hit the import button and this is how you start the whole process. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start with a metadata, and I'm going to do an edit metadata preset, and what I'm going to build for me is a copyright preset. Once we get this thing set up, my goal in all of this is that they will never have to set this up again. Any of this stuff. So that's where I'm going to try to head with this. So coming down to copyright, I am going to put in my copyright. Option G gives you the copyright symbol, and then I'm going to do Verser Engelhard. I do not put a date in here. Date is not really necessary. As a matter of fact, the copyright symbol is not really necessary, given what else I'm going to put in here in a second. I don't put a date in here because I don't want to ever have to change this thing. Again, I'm trying to set this up so I don't have to change anything for the rest of my life. So in terms of copyright, I'm going to list it as copyright. In terms of rights reserved, even though this is, again, not necessary for true copyright, all rights reserved. Copyright URL, you could put in your URL here. I'm not going to put mine in here. For the creator, I am going to list that though. Addresses. This is just my advice to you all. This is going to embed all of this information in the metadata of anything that comes into Lightroom. And that stays. That doesn't get ripped out. If somebody processes out a raw file that they brought in here as a JPEG and puts that JPEG up on their website, that everything that's in this metadata panel goes onto that website. So I encourage my students not to put in addresses. All of a sudden somebody's looking at their website and pulls one of their images off and says, okay, I know where that person lives, and goes to visit. Scary. I feel the same way about geotagging. I don't geotag my photographs either because it's the same reason. It's just, we don't live in that world anymore. And it's just from a safety point of view. I do put in ways to contact me because I come from a professional photography career. If somebody sees an image of mine that they want to buy, I want them to be able to get in touch with me. So I do provide ways to get in touch with me, but not physical addresses. So I'm going to leave all of that off. I am going to put in my phone number. I'm also going to put in my email. I'm also going to put in my website, but to do your website here, you actually need the full website address. So I'm going to run out to a browser really quick and go to my website. I'm going to then copy my address from the website bar and go back into Lightroom and paste it into the creator website. So you see it picks up the HTTP, it picks up all of that part. And this is it for me. This is all the information that I really need to put in here. I'm going to come up to my preset menu and I'm going to save my current settings as a new preset. And I'm going to call this Verser Copyright. And hit create, and then hit done. So I've built that part of it. The next part that we need to talk about is a little bit trickier. So most of your students, well, I'm going to assume this, and this is how we're going to set up this entire workflow, is they're either bringing images in off of a memory card, or they're bringing images in, they're copying images from a hard drive. Now, do any of you guys have people who are shooting tethered directly into Lightroom? So there is a possibility, again, to configure a final way of actually doing that part of it, so we can talk about that. Most of the people that I'm working with who shoot tethered are actually doing it in Capture One, not in Lightroom. But that notwithstanding, the majority of the students certainly beginning this process are going to be doing memory cards or hard drives. So we're going to set up importing from both of those. I'm actually going to do one thing really quickly in Lightroom first. I'm going to go to Preferences. There's only one preference that I really strongly suggest that you uncheck, and it's this one right here, Show Import Dialog when a memory card is detected. And the reason I don't want to do this is that I want the process to be the same, whether I'm using a memory card, whether I'm using a hard drive, whether I'm using any of that. And there are problems that we run into in terms of, let me rephrase that. There's problems that we're going to try to avoid by not having a memory card detected. So I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to close this up, and then I'm going to put a memory card in. So you're going to need to set this up in the beginning. You're going to need access to a hard drive and to a memory card to set up both, because there's options that come up when you do one or the other. So I'm going to put this memory card in. I'm going to go find it on my Finder. It's right here. And this is where, inside this DCIM folder is where all of my files are. If you actually take a look inside there, you'll see that there's a couple of folders in here. But I'm only interested in the parent folder, and I'm going to drag and drop that right on top of Lightroom. So now we've eliminated problem number one, and that is this whole import panel on the side, navigating to the files that you want to import. I just eliminated that hassle. Drag and drop. But the reason I needed to do this, or needed to do it with a memory card, is you also need to set up this eject after import, and massively important, include subfolders in this. So this will go in and look. And so these are all the files, I think, that I shot of one of my houses when I was trying to move. So those are pictures of my office and bedroom and whatever. I'm a fashion beauty shooter, so, but this is the card that I actually happen to have here. So at this stage of the game, we do need to set a couple of things up. We're not completely going to be able to get rid of this, but a couple of things. You will notice that I cannot select move and I cannot select add. All I can do is copy as DNG or regular copy. Now, there's pros and cons to working with a DNG. I prefer not to. I can always make a DNG if I need to after the fact, so I am strictly going to pick copy. The reason these other things don't exist as an option for you is the safety. Adobe does not want you, and you should never be using your computer to read, or your computer to write anything to a card that you're going to put into a memory card that you're going to put into a camera. The only thing that should be actually writing to that card is your camera. And as a quick side note here, just for all of you, I don't even use, my cards are marked and dedicated for a specific camera body. If I have two Canon 5D Mark IIs, I do not mix my cards in between the two. You're asking for trouble. If you always have the option to reformat a card in a computer, all sorts of programs, once you load the files, oh, let's reformat your card, you are asking for trouble. Only your computer, only your camera, and only, again, I'm really nuts about this. My cards are dedicated to a camera body, and I wouldn't trade it between camera bodies. I certainly wouldn't trade it between, let's say I had a Sony and a Canon. I would never do that, ever. So anyway, that's the reason this exists. I'm going to select copy. I'm not going to use this as a DNG. And then we're going to get to the most difficult part of all of this. And it's the part that we just need to deal with. Again, the source we've dealt with is very simple, drag and drop. Destination is a different matter. And it's this little tab that's up at the very top on the right-hand side. If you click on that drop-down menu, you can actually pick other destination. And I want to target all of my files to that folder that I set up. So I'm going back down to my hard drive, into my Lightroom library, into all photographs. Make sure that's the one I would do want. Yep. All photographs, and I'm going to choose. That is probably the most difficult thing about this workflow. Well, I say that. We'll see. In terms of the previews that we're building, I leave those at standard, but you do want to definitely check Build Smart Previews. These are the copies. Smart Previews are what are going to be uploaded to the cloud that do not take up any of your quota space from Adobe. That also gives you access to all of your files in the 3 other versions of Lightroom that exist. I do select do not import suspected duplicates. So if a student has got a card, they upload, they do an import, and then they take the card out and they shoot a couple more pictures and they upload again, whatever, you don't get 2 sets of those files, you only get 1. In terms of this make a second copy to, this is Adobe's feeble attempt at giving you an option to back up your stuff. The problem with this is that it will make a copy of your raw, or whatever files you're importing, but it will not make a copy of the database file. And so my method of doing a backup gives you a backup of both. So I stay away from this. I don't think that that's a good call in here. Right now, I'm not going to add to collection. We are going to work with collections in this workflow, but I'm not going to add this right now. I do rename my files. And again, in most cases, when you do this kind of stuff, you would consider naming your files for a specific shoot. I do not do that. What we are going to do is set up a system where the folder structure that exists in that all photographs folder is going to be sorted and cataloged by date. I actually rename my files to also be those same dates. And the reason I do that is that if I have a file that's name is a specific date, I know right what folder I need to go to find the other files from that exact same shoot. Make sense? It will, hopefully, before this is all over. So I am going to rename my files. To do this, click on this drop-down menu right down here and come down to Edit and get rid of everything that's up here. We are going to start this one from scratch. So to do the date, I don't use the canned date version in here because if you can see in the drop-down right here, you can do year, month, and day. I'm going to do a version of this that makes it easier to read. So to do that, I am going to start with year, year, year. You always start with year to get chronological order. If you sort the way that we do dates here in the US, we would do month, day, year. If you do that, what'll happen in your folder structure is that all of your Septembers will be together, all of your Marches will be together. You won't have anything ordered in chronological order. If you do year, month, day, then everything ends up in chronological order. Make sense? So if the token doesn't go up here into the top, simply hit the insert button, but in my case it did. I'm going to put in a dash, not underscore, but a dash. Then I'm going to go down to my date again, and I'm going to grab month, month, and a dash. Then I'm going to go to date again and go to day, day, and a dash. And then the way so many, and I don't really understand why this is, but so many programs want to use the number, the shutter count in your camera to be the frame number of your image. And I find that just absurd. I want my frame number 1 to be my frame number 1. I don't want frame number 688 to be my first frame in there. So I do not use my camera. I actually do use a sequence. Typically for me, I don't shoot more than 999 images for one set. But in this case, there's been some debate. I've actually decided on doing a 4-digit sequence number, which will let you get up into the thousands. So I'm going to pick this 0001. If for some reason you guys feel different, certainly in your own work, you could pick this 001, which just gives you a 3-digit counter. But again, this can only go up to 999. If you hit 1,000, you're in trouble. So this is just sort of insurance. Okay, so I'm going to pick that. And again, it hasn't come up into this, so click the insert. And this is now going to be my naming convention, my renaming convention. So I'm going to come up here to the top, and I'm going to save the settings as a new preset, and I'm going to call this Versa Rename. And say create, and done. It will actually load it up in here for you. If for some reason your starting number isn't number 1, you can change that. This would be a more advanced feature, something to just you guys to be aware about, but not something that I want to build in, because I'm building in a preset for everything. I'm going to be an umbrella preset. But if, say, you had done an import of a group of files from a shooting that you did this morning, and then you wanted to do an import for the files that you did today, and you wanted it to be consistent, then you would find the final number of the one that you imported in the morning, and then you would change this starting number to whatever the next number would actually be. I also leave the extension as is, and you can take a look right down here at the sample, and this is something to encourage your students to do. This is what you want your file naming to look like. Now again, You say, well, that doesn't give me any information at all, and I would disagree with this. This gives you a ton of information. I know that anything that I've imported here, and the import, all of this part, is actually coming from your camera. It is the timestamp that you shot the picture. It's not today. So the sample we're getting is showing today. But when I actually go and do this import, it's going to look at the metadata of my files and say, well, what day did he shoot that? And that is the date that gets stamped into it. So I can immediately say, oh, well, I want to see my stuff from last semester. I know that it's going to be 2022, sometime between January and May. So in the next part down here, in the developing settings, we are going to leave the developing settings as none. So this is metadata that is applied during import. In the metadata drop-down menu, though, I am going to add the very first thing I made, which was my copyright. So that was the first one that I did. So now I've actually got this part going. We are not going to do any keywording at this stage of the game because, again, I'm trying to build a template for the entire process. And if I put keywords in at this stage of the game, then it keywords every import that I do using those keywords. So this thing stays blank. If we have a little bit of time at the end of this, I'll show you guys a few tricks about keywording. But keywording is the way this whole workflow works. Again, I'm not naming my files flowers that I shot in Grant Park 1. I actually saw a guy do a Lightroom demo once, and he had literally all of his naming it was like flowers or cars. And I was just like, oh my God. Can you imagine trying to find that if you've shot for 20 years? Anyway, sorry. Making sure everything here, that part's right, that's part right. Okay, we're almost there, guys, believe it or not. In this destination part right here, you do not want to check into subfolder. You do want to organize this by date, and then this one's a critical one, and it's this format we are going to use. It's the second one down, that's the one I always refer to it. Now, the way Adobe works, they're probably going to come in and rechange all of the order of these date formats just to mess with all of us who have learned all that. So the guy said, Derek said, it's a good thing there's been no cussing in all of this. I'm more prone to colorful language, but I won't go there. I won't go there. I'm recording this. I got to remember that. But at any rate, for the time being, it's the second one down. And what you'll see is it's the full year followed by a slash and then followed by the exact same dating format that I created originally in the rename. You will see right here, it is the date of it was the year followed by a dash, the month followed by a dash, followed by the day. So that's why we picked this one right here. At this stage of the game, I would just suggest to your students that they look at this part right down here, and it's the part where it says all photographs, again, just to check to make sure that the thing that they picked up here, the destination, is indeed the correct one. It's just a check. And they'll never have to check this again. That's the beauty of where we're heading with all of this. So we're going to check that part to make sure that that part's good. So now this is actually set up to do the copy work from my digital, from my memory card. So down here at the bottom of your screen, you will see that there is an import preset. It is set to none. If you click on this open, you can say, I want to save current settings as a new preset. And I get really explicit about how I name this. So, and I'm going to look here just to make sure that this stays consistent. So this is going to be copy. Hang on one second. Yeah. New photos. From memory card to all photos. And hit create. And you can see right down here, it is the preset, says copy new photos from memory card to all photos, and it has all of the stuff that I have set up here is memorized in this guy right here. So just to show you how that part works, I'm going to now cancel out of this. I'm going to go to my Finder. I'm going to eject my memory card and show you the entire process from scratch. So memory card goes in. It shows up. I drag my folder of images onto my screen. It brings me right into the import dialog box. I click my drop-down menu and I say copy new photos from memory card to all photos, and I hit import. That's it. That's my import process. Never changes for a memory card. Pretty simple. Pain in the ass to set it up to begin with, but all you need to do is do this once. So this is going to go through. I'm going to go ahead and let this, we're doing okay time-wise. I'm going to go ahead and actually let this part finish, and then I'm going to show you part 2 about this, and then we can talk about whatever else you want to talk about. Oh, actually, I'm going to show you, I take it back. There's more stuff to show you guys, but anyway. Sorry, I've got a very slow memory card. Yeah. Actually, it would be probably better to ask them, but.
Yeah, I don't care what they think.
Okay, my card has now been ejected because I wanted that part to be automatic. If I now go and take a look at my all photographs on my external hard drive, Lightroom library, all photographs, you can see it's set up by year to begin with. If I go inside my year, all of this has been created by Photoshop. All of those images were taken on February 23rd, 2015. If I take a look at those images, they have all been renamed. So again, if I find a straggling this image somewhere, I don't know, somewhere on another hard drive, somewhere in a different folder, somewhere, whatever, and I go, oh God, those are all the images that I shot to sell my house. I wonder where the rest of them are. I simply look at this date, this name, and I know exactly where to go to. It's right here in all of my photographs, under the year, date, whatever. I find it immediately. Doesn't matter how big my catalog is. My catalog could be 40 years, 50 years. It doesn't matter. Does that kind of make sense, where we're going with all of this? Okay, my card did get automatically ejected, which is good. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that part out. Now we need to do the part for hard drives. So for me, see what's going on down here. Smart previews were built for the existing 63 photographs. Next time I demo this, I'm going to cut that number in half. Sorry, guys. Apologize for that. However, now I've actually got shooting that's actually on my internal hard drive. So instead of just adding another hard drive here, I'm just going to go and hopefully I've got a small set of captures in here. Yeah, I didn't think I would. Didn't think I would be that lucky. Just looking for something that's, yeah, don't want to do that. Okay, yeah, this will be relatively civilized. Okay, so This is just, again, a folder. I shoot tethered in this. This is a Capture One folder. And I'm simply going to grab this capture. Again, I've got to now set up a new preset for importing from a hard drive. So I'm going to start from a hard drive here. So I'm just going to click on the capture folder. I'm going to drag it onto. It does the same thing as before. It's actually just giving me all of the import stuff is all taken care of. All of these images are selected here. The only thing I need to change other than the original preset is instead of copy, I'm going to do move. Everything else in here remains the same. I don't have to update anything. I don't change anything. I want the same system here. But now I'm going to save this preset, and I'm going to save current settings as a new preset, and I'm going to call this move new photos. No, wait, is it new photos or new images? What did I name the last one? Hang on one second. I want them to be consistent. New photos, okay, all right. I should have had photographs at the end of that original preset, but I can go in and rename that. But at any rate, I'm going to just go ahead and create this preset, and it says move new photos from hard drive to all photographs. And my other one was copy new photographs from memory card to all photos. Again, I'm going to rename that so it says photographs just to keep it all consistent. This has now been saved, and so again, I'm going to go through the same trick and process again. I'm going to hit cancel here. I'm going to go back to my Finder. I'm going to find that pictures folder. I'm going to drag that folder onto it. Oh, I should have said also, just to make sure, it's sticky, so it's already. But again, we've lost the eject card part, but this includes subfolders. You would want to make sure that that was checked before you made the preset. If that was a problem, if you made a mistake in here or something was wrong, you can click on this, you can click on it and open it up, and you can delete the move preset and rebuild it. That's all you would do. But everything here is like ready to go. Again, the destination is going to be fine, and I'm simply going to hit import. So all I'm doing, once this whole thing happens, all I'm doing is dragging my source folder of images onto Lightroom, picking one of two presets at the bottom and hitting import. And that is my Lightroom workflow. Couldn't be simpler. Smart previews were built, and I'm off to the races. Questions about this?
So you did record this? Are you going to share this out?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. I'll be happy to. What I'll do is I'll actually put my email, as soon as this is over, because I want to do this in the middle of the recording. I've also got a PDF of this. So I will send anybody who wants it, I will send you a link to the video, and I will also send you a copy of the PDF. Sure. I know, makes it worth coming out on a really crummy day like today was, right? Okay. Okay, so at this stage of the game, I'm going to quit this only because I've got another catalog that is already synced. This is a brand new one. If I go to sync this now to the cloud, to the Lightroom version of cloud, whatever, you can only sync one catalog at one time. This is another compelling reason for only having a single catalog. If you have multiple catalogs, when you sync another one, you end up orphaning what's already been synced up there, and it can just be a real mess. It's not like you can go in and say, okay, I'm going to just strip everything out of my cloud account and just start from scratch. You cannot believe how difficult it is once you get images up into the cloud to get them off. So again, this is a really smart process to start this from the beginning. It's not impossible to get stuff off of there, but it's problematic. But at any rate, I am going to quit Lightroom. And before I start it up again, I just want to show you what I've got. I've got a hard drive with my Lightroom library. Inside is my catalog, all the information that's in here that I've done. And I've got all of my photos in here as well. And you will see now that I've got a second date. I've got 2019. I don't like the way this is done. I actually am a column person. So I've got in all photographs, I've got the 2015s, those are the ones I brought in off the memory card, and this 2019, this is again when I shot those pictures, and you can see again, they have all been renamed so that if I can find one of these pictures, it's easy to find the rest of them. Okay, so I am going to start Lightroom again, Lightroom Classic. I'm going to hold down the Option key when I do it. That's what gives you the dialog box to select now different catalogs. The one that I have synced to catalog to Lightroom in the cloud is this one called New Workflow 2022. I'm going to open that up. And this is just, again, it's a random assortment of images, stuff that I've taken from a bunch of different places. At any rate, it's just a lot of demo stuff that I've done here at Columbia. Your first thing that you have to do in this whole syncing process is this little cloud icon that sits up in the top right-hand corner. Looks like a cloud. Clever. If you click on that, you'll get a drop-down menu, and in the very first time that you do this, it will not say synced here. It will actually have a button that says Start Syncing. When you do that, you'll click on it. You've got to sign into the Creative Cloud using your username and your password, the one that you use for everything else in Creative Cloud. And then you want to actually go ahead and sync this catalog to the cloud. However, you are not syncing the library. The library, Adobe makes you go through additional hoops, and for a number of reasons. I think part of it is smart on their part. It keeps down the fact that people are not putting up 30, 40, 50,000 image catalogs. You can do that. Don't get me wrong. You can do that. But the way that the hoop that they put you through, whatever, is that the only thing in your library that will sync are collections. You have to use collections to sync. So you cannot, it will not, like right now, even though I am synced, the only thing that is syncing to the catalog, up to the cloud right now are collections. So you'll see right in here, collections. To build a collection that will actually then leverage this is how I do it. I'm going to click on a couple of images. I'll click on one, hold down the Shift key, and click on the next one. And I'm going to build a new collection. So I'm going to click on this and say Create Collection. You cannot sync smart collections. They will not work. It's only this one collection type right here. If you click on this, a dialog box will open up and you give it a name. Now here at Columbia, again, because what you're going to ultimately see here is that this is how students are also going to submit work. So the collection that they build, in my opinion, should reflect the work that you're asking them to give to you. So in my case, let's say for instance, I am in Photo Practice 1, so I'll do PP1, and then I'm going to do Assignment 3. I don't have to put a date on this. All these things are already dated. They're going to be already dated when they get them. And when they actually submit the link to you to look at this stuff, you're going to, you're going to be getting the link for the assignment that they're submitting. So that part isn't really that important to you. So you are going to say include selected photos, and you're also going to say sync with Lightroom, and simply hit create. So it's going through this process. You will actually see right here, this is now my PP1 assignment number 3. There were 3 photographs in here. You will also notice there's this little double-headed arrow that sits on the other side to the left-hand side of this. That is the sync. That's the indicator that this is actually syncing up to the cloud. You can turn these on and off. Like I've got a test one down here. If I click on this test one, I can click this little icon and it's going to say, do you want to stop syncing this collection? And I can say, sure, I'm going to stop syncing it. It only stopped syncing this one collection. Everything else is synced. I can turn this right back on to sync it again. Now again, there is no penalty for the number of images that you're putting up here. It's only uploading smart previews. This takes time. So how do I know how long? If I click on my assignment number 3, this is the one that I just put up there. If you control click or right click on the side of that, you will actually get a drop down menu and you can come down to Lightroom links and you want to say make my collection public. It'll now be changed from private to public. You go right back to the same place, hold down the control key, click on the drop-down menu, and come down, and you will see copy public link is not available to you yet. It's a time thing. This is now uploading those files. It needs to be cataloged on Adobe servers. It will eventually happen. But to show you here, I've got another assignment here that, let me give you something other than doors. Here, if again, this one I did last night, this is assignment number 2. If I control click on that and come down to my Lightroom links, you will see that it says copy public link. This is now copied that public link. So this, I don't know what LMS you guys use. We use Canvas. Student can actually submit a link for their assignment. So I'm just going to go to a website, Command L. I'm going to paste that link into it. This is how I look in grade assignments. I can click on these to enlarge them. I can comment on them. That's how we do it. I don't do export collections anymore. If you guys were actually doing export collections and having them submit that in anything, what a nightmare that was, right? Because they had to not only do the collection, the images, but they had to do the entire database part of that. So they were uploading 3 or 4 files. There's learning management systems that do not like multiple files. It's just a nightmare. This just gives me the images. And that is it. Questions? Yes. I'm sorry, what?
How long did they usually stay online? Is there like usually expiration time or?
There is none. This stuff stays there forever until somebody takes it down, and, until somebody literally goes in and removes this collection from it.
And then as a student then, how would they see the comments? Like if I enter a comment.
So this is how it would happen for us, okay? We use Canvas, so I'll just show you how this would happen for us. So I'm going to go into my Canvas site really quickly. And I'm just going to build a quick assignment for one of my classes.
Is this equivalent to like a Google Classroom kind of thing?
I don't use Google Classroom, so I wouldn't presume to say that, but you tell me when I show you this if it looks the same. So I'm simply going to go into my session 1, my week number 1. I'm sorry, what?
I just said Canvas is a lot better than Google Classroom.
Anyway, I'm going to hit a plus on here to do a new assignment. And I'm going to create a new assignment, and I'm just going to call it toss so that I remember to throw it out. And I'm going to add that item. Then I'm going to publish it. And then I'm going to edit it. And in the editing part of this, for submissions, so I would go through and say, yep, it's going to be 100 points. It's going to be in my weekly assignments. And for submission type, I can put in online. And what happens here is that for me, most of the time, I'm only looking at images. So I would click on website URL, and they would just submit the website. There are other instructors here, though, that also like text elements written about images. So they would actually add text image entry, which would allow a student to actually type directly into this LMS. Or you can also add file upload. So if they wrote out a Word file or a PDF, they can upload the whole show. And I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go to student view. So this is what a student would actually see. So when it came time to submit this, they would click on start assignment right here. And again, this is where they could upload files. But this is where they would actually click on URL and paste in that URL and submit the assignment. And then I get that assignment. So let me get out of student view and go to assignments. And find it. It's right here. So when I go to grade it, here's my test student right here, and here it exists right here along with the link. And I can click on the link and get it to be a bigger view as well. Anyway, but you guys sort of get what's going on here. And it's that simple.
So would you comment there ever? Or
Yeah, actually, I would comment here. I think I don't do the comments in the website because, again, I don't know about you guys, but any additional effort that a student has to put into something, whatever, they're not going to do it. If you say, oh, okay, fine, now you need to go back to the website and check out what I've just told you there, whatever, that's just going to die, right? So this all stays contained right here.
so they have a different website for every single assignment?
Oh, no, it's all done under Canvas. It's every assignment has got its own. So what?
I guess, right. Each collection would have another link.
Yeah. So if I have multiple students, then you would click on next student, and here would be another student. This is actually a real class of mine. This would be the next student that I had. And if he had submitted a link, it would be right here, and I would be looking at those pictures and commenting, and then click the next one, and it would be there, and I would be commenting and all that kind of stuff.
If a student makes an update, to their link, to their collection,
I'm sorry, if what?
if a student makes, sorry, I lost my voice.
That's okay.
If a student updates their collection, but you have the group link,
Yes.
to the updates,
That's a good question. The link wouldn't change, no. And again, because what's being synced is the collection. So if we go back, no, but this brings up a really good point, and something that I did want to show you guys. If we go back to Lightroom, all of these collections that are being synced, they're live. So if a student pulls something out of here and puts it back in the library, it disappears from the website version of it. If they add to this, it actually updates it. It's constantly being in sync unless I click on this little button over here to kill the sync. So it's live. It's constantly being updated. Other questions? Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes left. No, go ahead.
How quickly does it sync?
Truth of it is, the 3 images, well, here, we can go back and look at our 3 image set right here, because this is the one that I just made for this. And remember, I've made it public. So if I control click, right click on this and come down to Lightroom, so it's now live.
Okay.
So it's not an overnight thing unless somebody's uploading, again, because what's being uploaded are smart previews, which are a smart preview long edge is about 2,000 pixels, roughly. 2,400, something in that. So that gives you an idea about the size of it. Certainly, again, depending on somebody's, connection to the internet, whatever, it shouldn't be a problem overnight. Okay, so any other questions about any of this? So that's the workflow part, but I do want to show you, again, a couple of things about keywording that might help you, because keywording then becomes really what students should be doing in order to find their files, and it should just be habit. So I'm going to show you the way that I suggest students do it, and then we can go sort of from there. So I'm going to come over to the keyword part, and I'm going to stay away from the keywording part. I'm going to go to the keyword list first, and I'm going to click on the plus, and I'm going to do 01 who, and say OK. I'm going to click on the plus. Oops, that was not a 01. That was a 10. Who. Next one, 02 what? And then finally one more, 03 where? And say create. So I've basically created a set of keyword lists. There is nothing that they can describe that doesn't fall into one of these things. Who is it? What is it? Or where is it? Now, sometimes they'll fall in multiple versions of this. You'll have a who and a what. Sometimes you'll have all three. That part doesn't matter, but it's going to fall into here somehow. So I'm going to go back to my library, not the collections. Go back and look at all photographs. And let's say I want to keyword this thing that's actually right here. So if you hit Command K for keyword, the keyword dialog box will actually open up. And I am going to nest this. It's just a way to actually build out a hierarchy and nest it. I'm not going to really deal with the fact that she's dancing right now. I'm going to just do this one as if it was about location. So I'm going to start with Grant Park, because that's where this thing was shot. So sorry. Got it. Then I'm going to hit the less than. This is nested. I work from small to large. So it is the little icon. It's so hard to see this shit. It's the little arrow that's pointing to the left, the less than icon. Grant Park is less than Chicago, which is less than Illinois, which is less than United States, and I'm going to hit enter. I have now keyworded this with all 4 or 5 of those keywords, but look what has also happened. If I open up my where folder, I've actually got United States, Illinois, Chicago, Grant Park. It's all nested inside of this. And now if I actually copy a keyword to sync, say we'll do all 3 of these guys right here, I'm going to click on sync. I'm going to check none, go all the way to the bottom and say check your keywords and synchronize them. These have all now been tagged the exact same way. So nesting like this actually gives organization to your keywording as well. Questions about that? Perfect. Do one last thing to just show you. If I hit keyword here, because this doesn't have anything in here, so I'm going to hit Command K again and put in Grant, just start to type it in. It already knows about Grant Park. I'm going to hit OK for that. And you'll see it puts in all of those keywords for me. So your keywording can be much quicker. And I'll show you one last thing, cherry on the cake. We'll see, it'll be interesting to see what this one does. There is a plugin that you can get. It's called WordRoom, so just do a search for WordRoom. There's a free version of it and there's a paid version of it. The paid version of it is unlimited. The free version, it lets you do like 1,000 images a month, I think, something like that. The trick to it is that you'll see here I've got a ton of images. I would only keyword the first image. I would get it to search for the first image to keyword it, and then I would just sync all of my other images with that. So my count for this auto keywording service is only one image. But if you click on auto keyword, it actually uploads your image and it comes back with this. Outdoors, outside, adult, fun, smiling, leisure, park, happiness, people. Now I can go in and turn these off or turn them on, but if I think that they're all good here, I'm going to say, okay, let's just add them and close, and that's how I keyworded my image automatically. Pretty sweet.
So, Mercer, what you're saying then is that you use the free version, you get 1,000 images a month.
Right.
You just did one.
I just did one.
But then you could sync those keywords with 1,000 more images.
5,000 more images, and I'm still, my hit is only one.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? All right. We're out of here.